Now that we have a working Docker engine installed on our system, let's take a quick look at Docker Machine. Docker Machine is a tool that ships with Docker Toolbox and allows us to A. Use Docker on non-Linux based operating systems like Mac OS and Windows, and to B. Launch and manage multiple Docker instances from the host machine. Let's start up a terminal and create a Docker host using Docker Machine. This time we'll skip the Docker Quick Start terminal and fire everything up manually. First, let's see which Docker host machines we have running with Docker Machine by issuing the command Docker Machine ls. There's only one machine running, and it's the default machine that was created when we launched the Docker Quick Start terminal in the last lesson. Let's fire up another machine. To do this, we'll issue the command Docker Machine create. When we installed Docker Toolbox, VirtualBox was installed as well. That's because Docker Machine requires a VM. VirtualBox is free, it works great, and most importantly, it's already installed, so we'll use it to launch our VM. Docker Machine also supports other cloud providers and hypervisors, including DigitalOcean, AWS, and Microsoft Azure. We can specify VirtualBox as our VM provider using the driver flag. The final parameter is the name of our Docker VM. I'll call mine Rick. So now we have a lightweight VM running in VirtualBox that is running the Docker daemon. Let's run Docker Machine ls again and see if our machine is running. Looks like we're good to go. Since we have the Docker client on our local machine, we can issue commands at the remote Docker daemon as if it were on our local machine. Let's see what happens when we try to list the running containers on our VM using Docker ps. Oops, running Docker ps listed the containers running on our default machine. We want to be able to issue commands to the new machine, Rick. The reason it didn't work is that we didn't tell our local Docker client that we wanted to control the remote Docker daemon running on our new Docker VM. We can do that with the following command. One side note, if you run this command without eval, it'll just show you the environment variables you need to set up the connection. Now let's run Docker ps again. Much better. We are now connected to the new Docker machine. Docker ps didn't list any containers, but that's just because we haven't run any yet. Let's run our O'Reilly HTTP application once again. Now that our HTTP application is running, we'd like to try out the Hello O'Reilly endpoint. The first thing we need to know before making an HTTP request to our service is, what is the IP address? We know that the port is 4567, but we know that since Docker is running in a VM that we can't use localhost to access it. You can get the Docker host's IP by simply running the command Docker Machine IP Rick. There's our machine's IP, so now let's curl the Hello O'Reilly endpoint. Once we're done using our Docker machine, we can stop the VM by running the command Docker Machine stop Rick. And we can always issue the command Docker Machine start Rick to restart the virtual machine if we need. If we're not going to use the machine ever again, we can remove it using Docker Machine rm. Docker Machine is a nice tool to allow developers and operators to use Docker regardless of their local operating system. It's also a nice tool for launching multiple Docker hosts, be they on your laptop running in VirtualBox or in a hosted cloud like Amazon or Microsoft Azure. Later in the course, we'll demonstrate launching Docker machines to use with Docker Swarm.